everyone, and welcome to another episode video of us giving a review. This time it's going to be Halloween Kills. I am your host, Dana, and I am joined by Mr. Chris Seeley. How are you doing, Mr. Chris Seeley?
I'm doing great. I'm doing better than most of the town of Haddonfield after this movie.
Yep. That would basically be everyone, except for like one person, maybe two. So, this was a direct sequel to Halloween now 2018, where we are literally continuing the story of what is it, Laurie Strode being hunted down once again by Mr. Mike Myers. Um, and yeah, from the get go, it starts off with you know basically she's wounded. No, actually, it doesn't start off that way. It starts off with a flashback. We have 13 minutes of flashback
Yes,
and,
yes.
until we get into a movie. So, yes, it takes place where it's Cameron Elms. He finds the wounded deputy Frank Hawkins, which is from the first Halloween movie in 78. And so they give his whole backstory, which is essentially why he feels guilty for today that Michael is running around killing people. So we can kind of take it from there. From that opening of 13 minutes of next movie, we had a flashback. How did you feel about that?
Well, it was a well done flashback, but I had an issue like modern Hollywood feels like they need to explain everything, and
Yes.
I don't think that's necessary. So uh, they they flash back to 1978 at
Mhm.
which is taking place after the original Halloween movie,
Ah, so you're better than me.
and what at the end of that movie, Dr. Loomis had shot Michael Myers in Laurie Strode's room, shot him, and he falls out of the window.
Mhm.
And the climax of that movie, like the ending shot, was Loomis looking over the balcony, and Michael Myers was gone. Like he had shot him 6 times. He falls
Mhm.
out of the window. He was there. Loomis turns back to check on Laurie. He turns back around. Michael's body's disappeared. So this flashback is supposed to explain how they caught him and put him in the sanitarium. So he's walking around the neighborhood. You see Hawkins as a young deputy
Mhm.
and chasing him. Hawkins also shoots him, and he just keeps walking. He disappears, and then the other Henfield sheriffs and deputies are running around the neighborhood trying to find him. We see kids bullying Lonnie again. So Lonnie, again, for people who don't know, in the '78 movie, he was getting bullied at the school
Mhm.
by three kids, and they kept saying the boogeyman's going to get you. And the boogeyman is how they refer to Michael Myers in the original movies. They call him the boogeyman. Uh, Lonnie runs away and he runs into Michael Myers at the school, but Michael Myers doesn't do anything to him. Just lets him go. So this flashback it repeats. At night he gets bullied. The cops come through. The kids act normal, and they Lonnie runs away and he's running home. He trips and he sees Michael Myers walking at him, but then he cowers, and then when he looks back, he's gone. He vanishes, and the cops are there, and he's like, "Oh, the boogeyman's gonna get you." He runs away. So that was but it's like just callbacks. It's like, hey, remember this? That happened in the original movie, and this kid was in the original movie. It's just setting up all these like member berries for later,
Yeah,
and
but
then
even yeah, go.
oh yeah, and then finally they track him down to his old house where he murdered his sister. They go in the abandoned house. The deputies they're searching for him. One of the sheriff's deputies he tells a story how he used to hang out at the Myers house when he was a kid,
Mhm.
and Michael used to stare at the window, and he was wondering what he was staring at. And he makes a comment that, oh, he's just staring at our sleepy town where nothing happens, or something like that, which was foreshadowing. And then he goes up to the room and he looks out the same window, and Michael attacks him. Hawkins gets in the room and he tries to tell Michael to stop, like choking him as he's strangling the other deputy, but he's holding him in the way. Hawkins decides to take a shot, but he shoots the other sheriff's deputy in the neck, He misses Michael. He throws him down, and he takes off. But Hawkins is talking to the deputy and is trying to help him, and then he runs to the stairs. And what I liked was the deep fake of Donald Pleasance. So Donald Pleasance played Dr. Loomis in the original movies, and I think that scene where he's looking up the stairs yelling, it's like, "Deputy, did you get him? What happened?" I think that was footage, unused footage from the original movie that they spliced in.
That's not bad.
So it looked good because he was really moving. It's like, "Deputy, what happened?" And he's yelling at him, and it sounds like Donald Pleasance. I think that is him, just spliced in. But the deep fake later was him standing on the porch, and
Mm.
Michael Myers is surrounded by all the sheriffs, and then the flashback ends and it cuts back to the present day.
See, with that, and knowing that because they said they filmed new material for the flashbacks,
Hmm.
they did a really great job with the new material and the original footage from the second movie. So I
Yes.
thought in that respect they did a great job, but overall, I didn't feel that it added much to the story. I felt like they shortchanged the story and instead filled it in with a whole bunch of backstory.
Right, right. So we're in the second film of this trilogy
Mhm.
that follows up the original movie. The time to have done this follow up, this flashback, would have been the last movie, not
Mhm.
this movie. And we didn't need to see that because we already know he was in the sanitarium for all these years,
Yeah, they did
40
a
years
whole
with him.
scene of it for the last movie.
Right. So we don't need to fill in how he got caught. We know he's got caught because he was in a sanitarium. That's how the last movie started. So to now put this in, while it looks cool, and I really think they did it to look cool, and like, oh, we could splice Donald Pleasance in and make it really feel like it's happening in 1978. Yeah, but you missed your opportunity to do it, and you're
Mhm.
doing it now, which is weird. And also, you show that Myers is it can be stopped. Like he stops moving, he stops for the cops, but doesn't finish the scene. That's the flashback actually comes back around later, where Hawkins explains his mistake, or what he feels is his mistake, was stopping Loomis from executing Michael Myers right then and there on the lawn.
Right.
All the sheriffs beat him, and they beat him down to the ground, and Loomis is about to just blow his head off, and Hawkins stops him, right? Which is why he's in the sanitarium and not dead.
Mhm.
And that's how so he has that guilt. That's the guilt Dana was explaining, that he should have just let Loomis kill him, and it would have prevented all these movies from happening.
Amen to that. I completely agree. The thing that really stood out for me was the next scene after, which is it's currently present day, even though it's like 2018 back then.
Hmm.
And they're doing the 40th anniversary of Michael's. They think is still in prison, which is weird to me because I thought that maybe it would have made something of a news if you're having a whole bunch of people who were murdered from the last movie. Nobody reported it, but okay, fine. Um, the thing that really caught my eye was we had the part where Mike Myers, remember when we last cut off the whole building, the whole apartment, not apartment, I'm sorry, I'm from New York City, everything's apartment. The whole house was on fire. And that was really something I really liked. And he came out, Michael Myers came out, and you had all of these firefighters and they didn't know what was going on. And you had him just basically slaughtering everyone.
Yeah, that scene was silly because okay, he's trapped in the fire. Remember, Laurie Strode sealed the basement
Mm-hmm.
so he couldn't get out and lit the house on fire. The house
Yes,
is ablaze.
I bleed.
It's so bad when the cop, not the cop, the firefighter, the first one goes in. He goes over where the hatch is to the basement, but he falls to the floor. The floor gives way and he falls. He sets off his little Mayday tracker because he's stuck in the fire. He can't get out. Nobody can hear him. But Michael Myers opens the gun rack. He had sealed himself in Laurie's gun rack, which was like a garage door, like a corrugated
Mm-hmm.
metal door. So he opens it, he comes out, and he kills that firefighter.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other firefighter comes in to respond to the Mayday. He reaches down. He's like, Take my hand." Michael Myers grabs his hand. We just hear a scream from the house, and then he comes out with a fireman's hook, and then proceeds to just murder the other like 11 guys on the lawn. Like he kills all of them. I mean, in a ridiculous fashion. Uh, I don't know if anybody has seen like new firefighters take exams where you have to handle the fire hose and how much
Yeah.
water pressure comes out of that hose. So the firefighter shoots him with the hose, the first guy who was in the front, and he doesn't even flinch. He
Nope.
doesn't act like the water's in his face. He's getting hit with so much water that it should have pushed him back in the house. He just keeps walking, stabs the guy in the face. In a first person view, by the way, there's a weird shot like he's stabbing the camera and the guy falls over dead. And then he goes and proceeds to impale another dude, pick him up in the air, throw him. I mean, it's like he leveled up after the last movie because he's killing these guys in insane fashion. Then the guy with the circular saw, he just bends his arm backwards, cuts him with the saw. It was insane. I was like, listen, I know this guy is like pretty strong and he's psychotic and whatever, but the firefighters aren't weak dudes, right?
Right.
These guys are trained, they're pretty strong, and they know
Mhm.
how to handle their equipment, and he just decimates them. It was kind of ridiculous, and also he had just come out of a fire where he could barely breathe. The other firefighters had full gear on; they had oxygen mask and everything. He's just standing there in the blaze,
Well,
no problem,
he's the essence of pure evil.
right? But that only came about in this movie. Before he was just a psychotic guy who kills on Halloween, and he had some limits. Like he killed in the first movie, he stalked Laurie, and he only killed teenagers, and it had something to do with his sister and all this shit. Now it's just everybody. He'll murder you if you're just around. If he can see you, like he'll just kill you.
Except
Doesn't
for the
matter.
kids. Except for the kids, because remember they thought
Only little kids,
it was hide
because
and
those
seek.
teenagers, like, forget it. He tied them up on that playground later. I was
Yeah.
like, holy shit. And I know they were trying to do a nod to Halloween 3 because each of the kids had a mask from that
Mhm.
movie. It was like a little Easter egg. But um talk about the survivor thing in the bar.
Oh, the survivor's guilt. This is what I thought we was going with in
Mm.
terms of the movie and how original it was going to be because I loved that part where basically they have a makeshift survivors what would you call it? Party? Not a party, but like a survivors commiseration
I guess.
thing, I guess, where basically I guess every year, the survivors of that town, because no one moved out of the town apparently ever, um, they all go and they celebrate another year that Michael has been in prison. And so we have Anthony Michael Hall, who is not originating the role, which I originally thought he was, but he's not originating the role. Um, and you have who was it? I believe it was Marion Chambers, Lindsay Wallace, who is Kyle Richards, I think, Cameron's dad, and then you had Lonnie. Lonnie's
Hmm.
still around, he's still alive, and they are basically in a bar and they're celebrating, another year, Michael's dead, yay! And obviously that's not the case. And then that takes place at the exact same time as the fighter fighters are getting slaughtered, which is also at the exact same time where you have Karen and Allison because are going in the emergency room,
Yeah.
which is weird. So anyway, they think life is all great and dandy, and meanwhile, Michael is literally just walking around the town, and he finds the elderly couple, who's the black couple, in their home, and I like they had a little, what do you call it, a little banter going on. It was cute at first, and he's just basically, we all end up knowing that he ends up slaughtering them in just a weird, brutal way. Where I thought,
Yeah.
yeah,
That was too real. Like, so it was a mixed couple, and the old woman was playing with a drone.
mm-hmm,
She's flying the drone around, and then it goes. Obviously, the drone was the trope. It's like the dog that goes outside and doesn't come back, like yelps like, "Oh, somebody outside!" Well, instead of that, it was a drone. The drone goes out the door. Obviously, it hits Michael Myers and he breaks it. And then the her husband's like, "Oh, give me that. You don't know how to use it." Then he just throws the drone back in the house. They realize, oh, he's outside. They go look. They don't see anything. They have the husband closes the door, but they have this weird kind of long glass, long window against the wall, and of
Mhm.
course he pops up out of it and just smashes the guy through it and impales him on it.
Wait, they do the whole thing like there's someone in the house.
Yeah, they that happens a few times.
The door is wide open. Please go outside and live. We're
Yeah.
gonna stay in the house because there's someone inside our house.
Oh well, there's a theme of that in this movie. There's a theme of like falling IQs when Michael Myers is around. He creates a field of stupidity around him. Like that's his power now. That besides being unkillable, he somehow makes everyone dumber
Yes.
as he approaches them to the
Yes.
point where they I mean, oh my god, wait till we talk about the hospital. But yeah, I felt this scene didn't make much sense because
No.
he doesn't he never used to just kill indiscriminately, but now he's just making a beeline through the town and killing everything in his way. If
Right.
he just walks to your house, like you're dead. And it's weird. But he doesn't just kill you and move on. He's not doing his slick little like, oh, stab you and then move on. No,
Mm.
he brutalized this couple.
Brutalized. He took the light strobe that was hanging up where would be the I guess you would say the stove or the microwave area, so you could see when you're cooking.
Yeah.
Takes that apart, breaks it, stabs her in the neck, then goes by where the husband is, stabs him, and then proceeds to stab him with every knife they have in the kitchen.
Yeah, he
Just
just keeps
one,
taking knives and impaling him like
and
on the
I'm,
table.
and she's looking, and she's all like, and he's just in the back, and I'm like, it's not even like it's just like I'm bored. Let me just randomly stab, and it wasn't bad. Like some of the kills were not bad at all, but it was just like this doesn't make any sense in terms of continuity.
Yeah, also it was like they felt like the last movie wasn't gory enough. So now
Mhm.
they upped I mean, people are bleeding like crazy or he's
Mhm.
smashing them to pieces like how he killed the firefighters
Mhm.
and the couple and then um you know at some point I guess the news gets to the survivors in the bar and around the town. Everybody's phone is going off,
It
which I
was the
guess alert.
emergency alert, which I guess only rings for Mike Myers.
Yeah, yeah. So everybody's phone goes off, and the TV. It's like, oh, but the TV's the reporter is just being vague. It's like, oh, the sanitarium bus crashed, and there were two survivors,
That's
and
Michael.
yeah, but they don't really talk. The other guy didn't have a name though. The I call him the Penguin because he
Huh.
looks short with long hair. That guy, and then that guy played a weird part later with the hospital.
He wasn't the guy who jumped off.
Yeah, he was. He was.
Oh,
Yeah, he
then
was.
it was just that doesn't make any sense though because that guy who jumped was literally in the hospital.
No,
Not he worked there. He wasn't part of the mob.
no, he was the sanitarium escapee. He had
Oh,
the
he was
jumper
it.
on. Yeah, he went in the hospital and he was saying, "Help me." Because remember, okay, so at the bar,
Yeah.
there's a couple there dressed as a nurse and a doctor, and
Right.
they're leaving. They're like, "Oh my God, Michael Myers is loose!" And I recognize the little black kid from the first movie whose babysitter got killed by him.
Mhm.
He's on the TV. They're like, "Oh, that's my neighbor. No, we gotta go." So they leave. They get in their
Then
car, and
yeah.
the girl's about to start it, and she realizes somebody's in the back seat, which
Mhm.
is like a callback because that's how Michael Myers killed Brackett's daughter in the original movie. So
Ah.
she dives out of the car. She's like, "Oh shit, Michael Myers is in there!" And she runs in the bar. So her husband, the nurse guy, he comes to check it out, but the car starts, and somebody you can't see, it's all fogged up, and somebody's behind the wheel. He's like, "Oh shit, Michael Myers is stealing my car!" So Tommy Doyle and all these guys come out. Doyle grabs a baseball bat. He starts trying to intimidate Michael Myers. I don't know how he thought that he was going to do that
I don't know.
by hitting the car. Then the car takes off and crashes into uh, a power junction or whatever down the street, and they go check the car's empty, of course, and they're like, oh, he got away, you know, and then you see the other guy. It was the other inmate, and his head is cracked open. He must have hit it. He must have cracked his head when he crashed the car. So he somehow manages his way to stumble on foot to the hospital. You
Knowing
know,
exactly where it's at, by the way.
yeah, yeah. And then that set up another weird theme of the movie, which was like mob mentality, but it was like
See,
turned to
I
11.
but I like that idea though. That where's what they could have stuck with instead of everything else. Because I guess if you're like a part of the survivors group, you would want him to stop him before he hurts anyone else, and you know that's what he's gonna do. He's gonna just walk until he kills someone. But the thing is that it backfires, and they just become blind with rage.
Right, but it was like too stupid for the rage they had because like okay, so they all know what Michael Myers is like. Tommy and all these guys knows what he looks like.
Hmm.
Tommy's actually seen him, and everybody has heard stories. They would have exaggerated him too. I mean, he's fucking tall to begin with. So
Yes.
by 40 years, he would have been 8 feet tall, wearing a white mask and whatever. And so you have this 5 foot nothing squat little dude, looks like the Penguin from Batman Returns, waddling around, and they're like, "There he is, there's Michael Myers." I'm like, really? Really? First of all, this guy's not dressed up in black. He's not wearing a mask.
No.
He's got long white hair, but everybody just takes off to like, oh, we're gonna kill. So they run to the hospital, and like Laurie Strode is confused because earlier her daughter lied to her. I have to back up a second because I do not understand the characterization of Laurie Strode and her daughter and granddaughter because they just survived the first movie, and I was very sure that her daughter was not like, "Hey, mom, you were right, and I'm glad you trained me for all that shit." Like Michael Myers, the boogeyman, you were right about everything,
Everything.
and now I'm gonna be honest with you. No, her daughter lies to her because she knows, like after talking to the sheriff, that they're like, oh, by the way, he killed all the firefighters that went to your house, and they tell the daughter and granddaughter at the same time. The daughter goes to Laurie, and Laurie's like, "Oh, yeah, we killed that son of a bitch. He's burned to death." And she's like, "Oh yes, mom. Yes, he's gone."
See, I
I'm like,
didn't have a
What?"
problem with that because you wouldn't for 1 second. She spent her entire life, consumed with Michael. You want her just to have a little bit of peace. So you'd be like, yes, it's okay. I'll tell you later, but it's
But
okay.
it doesn't make sense because she doesn't handle it in a way afterwards that makes sense. She's like, oh, Michael will come to the hospital. She tells Tommy that. She's like, I don't want to tell my mother that he's alive, but he's gonna come here. I'm like, so your plan is what exactly? Wait till he gets there and fight him with what?
The bedpan.
Pens?
The
A
bedpan.
bedpan? Yeah. It's like she had no plan after that. Like it would have been better to have been honest with her and say, "Hey, mom, guess what I found out?" You know, but Lori finds out 2 seconds later anyway
Well,
because
yeah,
of the mom. Because
but
Tommy Doyle runs in the room and go, "Lori, oh my God, Michael Myers is alive!" Oh, you know,
but here's the weird thing: she couldn't do anything either way because she's all stabbed up. She's
yeah.
lying in the hospital room. No
On,
surgery, by the
on,
way.
well, no, they had that ridiculous surgery scene. Remember,
Oh,
they put her on the table, and that was my problem with
that
the
was
gore
rough.
because the gore was all over the place. So they unnecessarily show them stitching her up, her
Right.
stab wounds, and like sucking out the blood, and you see them using all the tools and this. I'm like, yeah, I don't need to see any of this. You could just show her on the operating table. Remember, they used to show surgery all the time in old movies, and it was tasteful. Like maybe there's some blood on the
This is
fucking
far from
doctor.
tasteful.
No, they just like have the camera over her. It's like there's a hole in her gut, and I'm like, I don't need to see that.
Wait, so
Um,
you're okay with like the light strobe going into someone's neck?
No,
but
I was well because he's killing people, right? Like there's a way to do things like this is from her perspective. This is not Michael Myers like butchering somebody, right? This is
Mhm.
a doctor's fixing someone. all we need to know is like, oh, she's in surgery, right? And by the way, I have a problem with this hospital because who puts a morgue next to the surgery rooms and whatever that is wide open, no blinds, by the way, wide
uh,
open windows where you can see all the dead bodies in there.
this
Be-
doesn't seem very sanitary.
because that also start it's just there to rile up the crowd, because remember that mom walks by and she sees her son dead
Mm-hmm.
on the table and she's flipping out. And then, okay, also I did not like the catchphrase. Like, for some reason the mantra was "Evil dies
Evil dies
tonight,"
tonight.
and I was like, "What?" I'm like, "Did you get marketing people to write this? Like, the fuck?" It's like, you want to kill Michael Myers? Oh, evil dies tonight, guys! Oh, we're gonna, and everybody's chanting it. I'm like, oh, this feels like so inorganic and weird.
Because they spent what 50 minutes of the whole movie just reciting that he's the essence of evil, of
Right?
pure
Well,
evil.
I know, but
This
it's
is so
weird
terrible.
because they didn't say the boogeyman dies tonight, which is what they used to call him. And with that flashback, you think they would refer to him like that, but they don't. They
No.
just say evil dies tonight, and it's like, but then we get through this movie, and you see he doesn't. Certainly, a lot of other people died tonight. If you want to say half of Haddonfield died tonight, like, that would be more accurate.
Haddonfield dies tonight. That's a very accurate one. I like that one. Um, but yeah, but here's the thing. Also, going about the whole mob mentality, I understand that, and to me, I thought that that would have been the most smartest tactic. We can't get him individually because we know that. But if we do it as a group, then we can stop him. But what ends up happening once they get into the hospital and kind of form that group after after all that chaos, they separate.
Yeah, that was ridiculous
And
too.
I'm like, this doesn't. Why would you go and separate when you? The speech he literally gives is, "We have to stick together."
Yes, and they immediately break that.
I,
As
I,
soon as soon as Lonnie showed up and he had guns in his car, which I don't know how many. He seemed to have an arsenal, even though he pulled out two guns. All of a sudden, everybody was armed. I was like, okay, I guess he had more, but whatever. That didn't matter. But they immediately go off in different groups, and you would think they would all be like, "Here's my number. Here's my number. Oh, I got walkie-talkies or I got radios. Radios, if you see
no,
this motherfucker or whatever." No, they just go off and just try to kill them themselves, which goes utterly wrong every
horribly.
single time. And he caught the scene at the park was kind of ridiculous because that was a lot of member berries in that
Hmm.
scene. Like, he jumps on the car and it's the nurse from the
Hmm.
original movie, and the doctor and nurse couple are in the back, and the other Lindsay, the other girl who survived, she goes to the swings and she's yelling at those kids, and they're like, "Yeah, the boogeyman's playing hide and seek with us." I'm like, these kids are taking this rather well. They're just like, don't give a shit that Michael Myers is like
They don't know who
watching
he
them.
is. They're
I
kids.
Yeah, I guess they don't know who he is. So
And it was around Halloween, so they're like, "Oh, this is weird, creepy dude."
yeah, so they Lindsay yells at them enough that they run away. And you can see him. I guess I don't know if they ran away from her because she yelled at them enough, or if they actually saw that he was holding the head
Hmm.
and mask of their buddy who had the
Yeah,
skull
that's what
mask
it
on.
was. They was like, "Oh my god," because they recognized who that was, and then they ran
Yeah,
away.
yeah. So I'm not sure if he cut his head off in the mask or if it was
That
just
would
the
have been
mask.
lovely to have seen.
Yeah,
Sorry,
they don't show it. He's just standing there with the mask in his hand. And I was like, is there a head in there? Did he
they
cut
did.
his whole head off? Because that was like, I was thinking that. But then he turns his attention to the car, and then we get the member berry where he jumps on top of the car and harasses the nurse. And he does the same thing where he slams his hand into the passenger side window and shatters it. And she's
Hmm.
freaking out, and she's got a tiny little revolver, and she's just shooting indiscriminately. Oh, against you.
I can't see him. Where is he? Bing, bing, in
Yeah.
front, literally in front, inches away, and
Yeah.
she's all over the place.
So somehow he yanks the nurse out of the car, and then he comes in, and she has some snarky line, but of course the trope comes in where she's out of bullets. She fired everything, and then so he climbs in the car, and the doctor guy decides to strangle him with his costume stethoscope.
Hmm.
Like, I was like, yo, I was like, dude, what are you
The
doing?
Party City. That's the scope.
Yeah, he tries to, and Michael Myers just looks at him and just stabs him right in the eye, just bam. He kills him in like 2 seconds. He kills the nurse too, And then the other nurse that he threw out of the car, I don't know where she ended up. Did he throw her down the street? Because she looked like she was walking back from somewhere very
Yes.
far away. I was like, wait,
We
he
were
just threw
supposed
you
to just
outside.
forget about that. So she just takes off walking after being thrown out of the car by a killer.
Yeah, and then she walks back shooting indiscriminately at the car. Not, and I'm like, wait a minute. First of all, you don't know the status of anybody in the car. You're just blasting the car, which means you could have shot everybody in it. And she misses every single shot. Like she was a
Hmm.
terrible, even though she was bragging that she shot a gun, she's a terrible shot. And then he just kicks. She gets close enough where he kicks the door, and it hits the gun and turns around. She shoots herself, which I was like, this is like clownish. How stupid
Well,
everyone became. Mhm.
that's his superpower. He just makes you incompetent.
Yeah, and then Lindsay survives because she goes and hides in the woods, and then
Hmm.
he just gives up looking for her. Like I don't know if they're hinting that he knew, but he just didn't give a shit. Like he just keeps walking. Like I guess he was tired of like looking for her, and he just walks away.
That I that was so frustrating because Lindsay from the original one, she was the girl who was babysat by Jamie Lee
Laurie,
Curtis, by
yeah,
Laurie,
hmm
and I feel like this movie robbed us of so many great scenes that we could have had with the characters that it just made no sense why they brought them back.
yeah,
Because Lindsay would have been great. Like, oh my God, look at you. You're an adult now. And it was just weird because it seemed like they've always been in Haddonfield. They never left. And they just, maybe unless you're not a part of that group, I guess if you're not Lori, you just don't care
yeah.
anymore.
It's very bizarre. They talk about him all the time, but none of them prepared. She prepared. She became a prepper, and she
Hmm.
set up her house, and she has a million guns, and every she shoots every day, and she even set up her house to trap him. Her house wasn't really to live in. It was like a giant trap in case he ever came to her house.
She
It's
should have been a
weird.
part of the survivors group. Why is she not giving lessons?
Yeah,
Do
then
they meet each other? I don't know. It seems like it's two separate stories
right.
that they smushed together. And then remember the whole part about who's actually Karen's father. Which is
Um.
it was Hawkins. Remember Hawkins? So while all of this is happening, Lori is still in the hospital where she
Yeah.
spends 99.9% of the movie, which that's just extra stupid.
Yes. Yes.
So she's in the hospital, and remember, it's I think Hawkins comes next to her, and they just start talking about the past and
Mhm.
their former relationship, and they're filling in unnecessary time
Yes.
where basically when they're reminiscing, it's implied, it's not said out loud, that Hawkins is Karen's biological father.
Yeah, yeah, I forgot they had that conversation. And that's also I hate that in writing. It's like you did a huge flashback scene, but you didn't bother to show this. You
No.
just told you just they have a conversation, a boring like dialogue between them. Meanwhile, this is while the mob is running after the penguin, by the way. They're having this reminiscent conversation, and I don't know, like I've been in hospitals. I don't know any hospital room that has floor to ceiling windows where you can see right out into the hallways and people can see right in, but you can see the mob is not bothering them. They are just running through the
And there's no
hallways after them.
security at all. No one, like, not even the nurses are like panicking or anything. They just let them in and they're running rampant.
They're running rampant. Nobody's getting order, and apparently even the doctors and nurses later, when they when they think Michael Myers is in the hospital,
Yeah.
remember Karen runs up to find the penguin guy,
Hmm.
and they punch her. They like knock doctors knock her out of the way. Like get out of my way! Oh, Michael Myers! Everybody loses their freaking mind, right? Like it was just everybody was getting too stupid for believability. And I was like, what is the tone of this movie? Because I feel like they lost their way from the last movie. And I was like, I looked at the credits, I'm like, it's the same people. You have the same
Hmm.
director, same writers, same executive producers. Like, it's the same crew. So I can only think that somebody was like, hey, we got to turn up the gore, and I mean, he kills way more people.
Yeah.
And the like my least favorite scenes are in the hospital, like, and the ending. The not us the lead up to the ending, which was good up until they just shat all over it. Yeah. So and then I mean, so the crux of like Lonnie and Cameron and Allison. Allison disobeys her mother because Karen tells us, you stay with your grandmother. She immediately goes, fuck that. I'm going to go kill Michael Myers myself. Takes the biggest gun that Lonnie has, this giant shotgun, and they let her do it. She's like,
Mhm.
what, 90 pounds wet? And she's just like, yeah, evil dies tonight. She takes the shotgun. I'm like, what? Okay. And Lonnie figures out that, and then again, the stupidity, he figures out that Michael Myers is going back to his house. He's like, look, he's killing in a straight line. Somehow he's just a robot and he's just walking straight back to his old house. So he doesn't then pick up his phone and call Tommy Doyle
Mm-mm.
or anyone to say, hey, I figured it out. He's going back to his house. Everybody converge on his house. That's where he is. Nope. Then he just goes, well, I'm going to go in the house, check it out. You kids stay here and I'll be fine. He goes in the house. Michael Myers takes about 15 seconds. You hear a shot ring out, and that's it. You didn't hear nothing. The kids go, oh shit, fucked up. They go in the house, right?
In the house.
They go in the house. Of course, it's spooky house now because I mean there was the gay couple who own this house, and they were funny.
I like the gay couple so
I like
very
them too,
much.
yeah. But I mean, they got brutalized too because he's like, "Why are you guys living in my house?" And he killed them. Um, I mean, he killed the one of them brutally, and I don't that scene. Okay, I have to back up to the death of the gay couple. Michael Myers fucks with them. He knocks on the back door. He knocks on the front door. The guy looks out the back door, but he doesn't close it.
D-
Um, Nobody in Haddonfield locks their doors or
No.
closes them or nothing.
Well, that was
So,
from the last movie. Remember when he walked in the back house of that? I think it was
oh,
another
it was
black
wide
couple.
open. Yeah, it's just open.
It's
He
just
just went
open.
right in there. Yeah. So he does that there, and then they hear him stomping around upstairs. So they're checking the house slowly, and the one guy, I don't know if remember if his name was Little John or Big John. That's how they refer to each other.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Myers just picks him up by his head and just gouges his. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is brutal. He just and they show it. He gouges his eyes out, like you see the guts, all the blood coming out of his eyeballs.
All the
For
guts.
some reason, they showed that, like the visceral kill of that guy. He kills him. He gouges with his thumbs, and then and leaves him on the floor. And then he goes to the window and looks out, like that's the memorabilia of the guy explaining that he went to his sister's window and he looks out on the town.
Mm-hmm.
So he's doing that. The other guy finds him, and for some reason they cut away from his death, which Allison finds him later and he was just stabbed in the gut. I'm like, why did you cut away from him getting stabbed, but you showed the eye gouging? That doesn't make any sense. Like you cut away from a death if it's brutal, but they showed everything else. I'm like, you cut away from that? Okay. So that doesn't matter. So we come back. Allison goes in the house, immediately trigger happy. They do the trope where, oh, there's somebody in this room. And the Cameron swings the door open and she immediately fires in there. Lonnie could have been in there. Anyone could have been in there. She just immediately shoots and it's a pumpkin. She explodes a pumpkin that was lit up in the closet
Because it's Halloween.
as it's Halloween. And then they go upstairs and she finds the dead gay couple. And for some reason, she's like messing with their bodies. Like she pulls the knife
Mm-hmm.
out of one of them. And I'm like, why are you doing that?
So she can
Like
have
that
a
mean,
knife.
but that doesn't make you have a giant shotgun. What? It's like, oh
That's
well, I'm just
cool.
saying.
You need both.
Yeah, nah, yeah. Because they came in real handy later. So Cameron is looking around. He finds his father, Lonnie, stuck in the attic door. Like Michael Myers, I guess, just snapped
Used
him
them
and
as a
shoved him up in the attic.
door stopper.
Yeah, and pinned him with the attic door. So and Lonnie finds out because the blood is dripping down, and he looks up, and then Myers just bursts out of the closet in front of him and just proceeds to beat him unmerciful until Allison stops messing with the dead bodies and then gets up. She goes to shoot him, doesn't try to shoot him from her position. She takes a shotgun right up to his face, which he immediately grabs it, right? And then throws her down the stairs to the
Hmm.
point where it looked like
She broke her leg.
she broke her leg. Like it
Hmm.
looked like she broke her leg pretty bad, and so she's now incapacitated on the floor. Cameron, he just takes him. She's screaming at Myers to stop and to come after her, but he's like, no, I got to do this first. And he takes Cameron and just beats his head between the banisters and then impales him on piece of the broken banister, just bam. Then while he's like, now I'll come for you. So while he's slowly walking down the stairs, realize that Cameron's not quite dead yet because he's still gurgling. Just looks at him and just spins his head around, just like, just like I'm like, holy shit, just brutal. Then he comes down, but then while he's going after Allison, Karen all of a sudden shows up
She
and
stabs him.
stabs him with the pitchfork, and then kicks him in the head. But then that
And
does
takes his
only
mask.
that, and then takes his mask off.
And see, this is when I was gonna get really excited because he took the mask is off. So I'm like, we're gonna see his face. We're gonna know what evil looks like, and they never showed the face.
No, they just show little. He's like, you see his gray hair, you see his bald, but they show the back of his head. They never show his face.
Like, I
And
maybe it's for this for the next movie, but this is yeah.
I guess, but they got. I saw in the credits that Nick Castle did those scenes where
Hmm.
his mask is off, and Nick Castle played him in the original 1978 movie.
Yeah.
So that was cool. But when he has the mask on, it's another guy because obviously Nick Castle's old and he can't run around and impale people and all that shit. So
I don't know, some superpowers.
yeah, but he so Karen taunts him and then runs away, and she acts aloof, and you're like, why is she running in this backyard? What the hell is she doing? And then surprise, she comes to the street and she stops and she acts all worried, and then Michael Myers is obviously walking fast behind her, and then he catches up to her, and then all these headlights come on, and
Hmm.
it's the whole mob. It's Tommy Doyle and 50 other dudes get out, and they all got weapons. Like not like
Hmm.
I mean, Doyle has his baseball bat. They all got clubs and crowbars and all this shit. One guy, the weird guy in the cat outfit, has a gun, and so they proceed
To beat
um,
him.
to beat him. I mean, of course, they have to do the scene where he puts his mask back on because he's getting ready to fight, and then they beat him, and then Karen stabs him right in the spine. She just right in the back of his neck. She just takes the knife that he was reaching for, and she just
Hmm.
puts it in the back of his head. And she's like, "Okay, I'm going to go take care of my daughter." And she leaves, and the people, like, I don't know why you stopped beating him. I
Because
mean, what?
he's dead.
Oh, please! This was like horror trope 101. They don't, like, you would think they would absolutely, like, continue to blast him or
That's what I
just
thought.
beat him. But
Because the
no, they
mob
stop.
mentality, and if you have a survivors group and you know he can't be killed,
Yeah.
I don't know why they would do that.
Yeah, they stop beating him and they stop anything and look at him and whatever, and then he immediately, after Karen leaves and she's gone, he gets up and just proceeds to murder everyone
In slow motion.
in slow motion. Like, they have no chance. On this is him have after. And by the way, the guy in the cat suit scored shot all his rounds on him except for one. I think he shot somebody by accident. And then proceeds to continue shooting, but shoots Michael Myers like 5 times. Like, and then not only that, he everybody, including Tommy Doyle, was beating the shit out of him with weapons till he was on the ground. And then Karen stabbed him again. Not just the pitchfork. Now she stabbed him with his own knife. But
Mhm.
he then pulls his knife out of his back and just proceeds to just destroy everyone.
It's the mask. It gave him his superpowers back.
Yeah, I guess. I
Well,
guess.
that's why he had to put the mask back on, because then that way he could defeat him. I think if the mask was still off, he would have died.
Maybe. I mean, I wish they would have. I wish by now they would explain that further, because while he's doing that, while he's in slow motion murdering all the mob, Laurie Strode is giving the most boring, ridiculous monologue ever in the hospital. Like, she's safe in the hospital, sitting there, like, Michael's pure evil, and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, holy shit! It did. Why are you saying this now? Why aren't we showing any of it? It's like he transcends with every kill, and I'm like, what? Excuse me. I'm just like, where did this come from? Why did you not say this before?
Why not say this during the last movie to explain why you have your house like it is?
Yeah, I mean, this would have been a great dialogue when you had everybody in your house and you realize he was coming, it's like, oh, he's not human anymore, whatever. Okay, set that up before. Again, just like the flashback, why are we just finding this out now at the end of this movie? Meanwhile, okay, while she's giving this boring dialogue, it keeps cutting back to him slicing everybody open with this knife. He
In
just
slow
has the one
motion.
knife, and yeah, and then he saves Tommy for last because Tommy, I guess, loses his nerve till everyone's dead, and then all of a sudden goes, "Well, I'll do it." Then he kills Tommy. And I mean, it's not shown. I'm surprised they didn't show it because he takes Tommy's baseball bat and I guess just bludgeons him
Hmm.
to death. And then so then this leads up to the ridiculous ending where Karen goes back to the house. Allison's there. Allison's getting looked after by paramedics. There are now sheriff's deputies all over the place and paramedics. And Karen, for some reason, looks up in the window and she sees Michael Myers as a boy wearing the clown outfit that he was wearing when he murdered his sister.
Okay, Chucky.
Yeah, and it's weird. It's like, why would she know what he looked like then? But okay, you could say
Oh God.
if she's not imagining that, then you could say, okay, there's something weird going on. There's something supernatural about him because she sees that, and how would she know what he was wearing? But she goes up to the room and ignores all the warning signs.
Hmm.
There's blood where there wasn't before. She sees pools of blood on the floor and whatever, and she's just like, meh. And she goes in the room and she looks out the window, the same window he was keeps staring out of. She goes and looks at it and she sees her reflection. And then guess who else's reflection she sees? He comes up behind her and just murders her.
Hmm.
And again, in slow motion, but it takes her a while and she dies. And it's like, how did he get back in the house with it swarming with cops and paramedics?
Supernatural.
Yeah,
How was he able to bust out of the house that was burning and just slaughter the fire department?
yeah, it's just yeah. So he snuck back in the house. So he's back in the house now, looking out the window. And I guess this is now just gonna they play the piano music and whatever, and that's gonna set up the last movie.
Yeah.
Halloween ends, and I guess either he's gonna go to the hospital or they're gonna go. I don't know. I
See,
honestly don't know.
here's what happened. They originally changed the ending. That was
Hmm.
not how it was supposed to be. The ending originally was supposed to see where Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode, sees him in the whole crowd situation. She grabs a knife and she goes out there to meet him.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, that's kind of awesome. But we get this weird one instead, where like it's the voiceover and the stories, and he's a baby.
Yeah, I didn't like that because that harkened back to something silly they did in one of the Friday the 13th movies. There was I think it's Jason Takes Manhattan where the girl kept seeing him as
Hmm.
a boy drowning, and I was like, that doesn't make. I mean, at least Jason is supernatural. They already defined that, like that. But Michael
Right.
Myers went. I mean, from one movie went from he's just a psycho. He's been in the sanitarium, and now he gets to enact his revenge. But it was at the behest of his weird doctor who was obsessed with him, to
Yeah.
now he is just pure evil
For
walking
evil
around.
walking
Yeah.
around. And this is also what sucks because Jamie Lee Curtis, who's stuck still in the hospital, is oblivious to everything. And the original, what happens is she ends up calling her daughter,
Mhm.
and she finds out that that just her daughter is not responding, and and he picks up the phone and he understands what's going, and she figures it out. I think it would have been more impactful if she found out that the daughter was dead. We don't have to wait for another movie
Yeah.
for that to happen. So it seemed the whole thing overall was just silly. And they ripped out any form of personality that was there from the original. I mean, you have a guy who just walks around and stabs people. There's no personality there to begin with. And with Halloween, with 2018, they injected a lot of personality in that whole movie, which made it so enjoyable. And with this, it's just they sucked out all of the energy to the point where it on top it does not make any sense, and it's just silly but unnecessarily silly. It's the silly you don't want. It seems
Yeah.
incompetent.
Yeah, it does. The monologue doesn't make any sense because I was like, that monologue undid the first movie because
Hmm.
she's like, "Oh, we can't kill him with brute force."
No.
You have spent the last 30 something years building up an arsenal and rigging your house to burn if he ever got there. What the hell do you mean you can't kill him with brute force? Then why did you do any of that? That
I,
doesn't make any sense. you know? And it's like did she come to that realization in the hospital? Like then say that. Instead she says it like she's always known it. And it's like if you always knew that, then you made the first movie pointless.
yeah.
And then okay, that the ending you described sounds better, but I think if they wanted to make this ending work, this new one, what it should have happened is after they defeated him in the street, the mob and everything, the mob guys should have stopped, and then the paramedics should have taken his body to the hospital, and that's where Laurie should have confronted him. That's how it should have happened. It should have just stopped with the mob winning, right? That would have been satisfying because you set up this satisfying, like the mob got him. Like, okay,
Mm.
the thing with the inmate was unfortunate. He throws himself. By the way, that guy throwing himself out the window and landing. Why did we need to see his like shattered body on the ground?
I mean, it adds up to that body count.
Well, I mean, it was just like brutal. Like he's dead, but like his half of him is paste on the floor, and they show it. I'm like, God damn! You could have just shown everybody being. You could have shown somebody like puking and what. I'm like, there's time to show stuff like Michael Myers doing stuff like when the monster, the killer does stuff like you see that, right? But like a guy throwing himself out the window, we didn't need to see his like brutalized body. That was just unnecessary.
Hmm.
And it's like, yes, we know the mob killed him, the mob mentality, and their rage got out of control, and an innocent guy died. And all he gets is Karen saying, "Well, now an innocent man is dead," and then she's like, "But none of us are innocent." And I'm like, "What does that mean? What What do
They're
you
all
mean?"
secretly killers. That's why
I
Mike Myers is killing them so they can stop being killers.
I don't know why he's killing anymore. I mean, what? Who did the old black couple hurt in the beginning with their drone? Did they? I don't think they killed anybody.
They used the drone to drop bombs over Baghdad.
Oh
I don't,
my god. it it was just ridiculous, and like this ending was terrible. I think, and it's like that's not how you lead into another movie. I mean, these two movies were supposed to be filmed simultaneously, the second and third movie, as far as I
Mhm.
know.
Right.
Like this movie was supposed to come out last year, but because of COVID, it got pushed. Both of them got pushed. The Halloween Ends was supposed to come out this year.
Yeah.
Now it's pushed off. But those two movies are in the can, they're done. And if you film them at the same time, how do you have it plot to this ending? And then we're supposed to now continue and follow on with the third movie.
Because now, Mike Myers made it personal by killing Karen. He killed Karen. Sorry.
I, yeah, he killed Karen, but Lori, like you said, Lori doesn't know that. It doesn't have
Yeah, it just
impact.
doesn't have any impact though. But now I guess because it's personal in the next movie we know it's really going down.
What is he supposed to do now? Is he supposed to walk to the hospital with her severed head and throw it at Lori's window and go, by the way, pff,
Well,
like how
yeah.
how would she find out?
Well,
Nobody even knew. She went up to the room and nobody knew he was in the house. So unless he comes out of the house with her dead corpse, like, haha, I did. Look what I did. You
yeah,
know.
it does. I know it doesn't really make any sense at all, but I don't know. That's the whole thing. The whole movie itself seemed like to be a matter of convenience.
Yeah.
You have an entire mob after you, but you're killing them one by one. Like the
Yeah.
firefighters, okay, fine, because they don't technically carry weapons with them. You don't see a firefighter strapped.
Right. They didn't have weapons, but it didn't matter if people had weapons. Everybody
Yeah,
in
everyone died.
the nurse's car was armed. The nurse was shooting him
Yeah.
well, badly. She didn't hit him with one shot. But the cat guy, and also I think Allison may have shot him with the shotgun. I'm not sure because that scene happened so fast. But she does take the knife that she pulled out of one of the dudes and stabs him like 3 times. She stabs him, right?
Hmm.
He doesn't even flinch. That's when he slapped her down the stairs and she breaks her leg. She
See,
had
it's the
stabbed him.
mask. It's the mask. You have to. Well, how did it go? Pitchfork, take off the mask, then you kill him, and make sure you lock your doors.
Right? She should have never thrown the mask on the floor. She just should have just kept that shit.
Hmm.
That was the mistake.
And I don't even understand the whole point of the mask thing was to taunt him to go outside
Right.
so that they would come and kill him. But I would not have dropped the mask. That whole thing just doesn't make any sense. I don't.
Yeah, why give him anything? Like he's murdered and taken your life from you. Plus the fact that she hasn't processed that her husband was killed in the last movie. So the father of your child is dead and your mother is dying in the hospital. Well, she's not dying because she stabbed herself brutally
She
with
may have just
morphine.
already died. She's in a hospital for the whole duration of the movie.
Yeah, yeah, she doesn't know, but what was up with that scene where she's like, "Oh, this makes the pain go away," and she stabs herself in the ass with the morphine or whatever, and I'm like, was that necessary? Like, you could have asked your daughter to put this in my arm. No, she just takes this needle and just stabs
Well,
herself like
that's how
as
you
hard as
know, like she's how hard she is. So like, raw pain doesn't affect her. She's gonna
yeah,
just stab herself.
yeah, I know, but it's just at the level of stupid that everything else in this movie is. And I was disappointed because it started off kind of good, and I was like, I did like the little homage to Donald Pleasance, and I liked the flashback, even though I thought it was unnecessary to explain how they caught them. I did like forgive it because I was like, oh, they had a nice Donald Pleasance nod, and they did the deep fake where you see he was going to execute him
Hmm.
right then and there, and it was Hawkins who stopped him. That's why he blames himself, and then I mean, and then everything just gets dumb, and and his Michael Myers power creep is like through the roof. His mask makes him invulnerable, super strong, like a fire hose can't stop him. He can pick dudes up in the air, even though, by the way, he's still missing fingers, and they showed that when he was getting beat down.
Continuity.
Yeah, so they did the continuity, yet he has no problem holding a fireman's hook or knives in either hand. Even though he's missing fingers, it's fine. Like he does, even though they're like, hey, look, he's missing fingers. Yeah, but he doesn't act like it
Because he has the mask on.
because the mask gives him ghost fingers.
Gives him ghost fingers. There's some phantom fingers. So it doesn't matter. Um, yeah, this just it just seemed like overall, this was just a hot mess, and it seemed like it was two separate movies at once. Where you want that classic kind of thriller, well, not thriller, slasher,
Hmm.
and it just also seemed like it just you really wanted to kind of I feel that they brought all these characters back so that when they killed them you would feel something and it would be personal, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I've watched you since the first movie and now that you're dead, and that you want the audience to be affected by that, and that would be the reason why you would bring them back, a way to manipulate the audience. But because we haven't we haven't really spent that much time with them in this movie, and we have to remember something from 20, 40 years ago, that it's not as impactful as I think the director wanted it to be or thought it would be.
Yes, yes, they made a huge assumption that everybody watching this movie had not only watched 2018 but
Hmm.
had watched the 1978 movie.
Right,
I mean, if you come into this movie fresh, right?
right.
Not knowing, now it
Like
does pick up.
me.
Yeah, so you come in fresh, right? You haven't seen 2018, so not until you get to the hospital do you catch up a little bit on what happened in the last movie. But that flashback, you'd be like, what the hell is happening? 1978, what the fuck is going on? Who are these people? Like, who is this guy in the trench coat? Like, people would
Hmm.
know that. They don't explain any of that. So it's just weird. And it's like, but the director just assumes, everybody watching this knows Halloween. They watched that movie. They watched my last movie. It's like that's a big assumption, dude. Yeah, it has no impact. It's like we don't see, even in the flashback, you don't see Tommy and Lindsay as kids. You see Lonnie,
Right,
and that's it.
right. And even with the flashback part, which they did it really well. I was just upset that you spent almost 13 minutes with it, but it doesn't have any payoff to me. So that was one of my main issues. You want me to remember these characters from 40 years ago. Then you spend all this time unnecessary with one character and his backstory. But when you get to the movie itself, there's really no payoff because the whole time, what are you, stuck in a hospital room with Laurie?
Yeah, yeah. That the payoff was lacking on multiple fronts with this movie.
Mhm.
And I know it's supposed to lead into another movie, but you have to leave people with some satisfaction. Michael Myers just decimated everyone in his way. Everyone who went to face him is dead except for Allison, who is now has Joe Theismann level leg injury, and and so what is she supposed to do? I mean, it's obvious like this has to be a passing of the torch. It has to be like Allison now
Yeah.
becomes Laurie
Just
Strode. Although, like, what is she supposed to do? Fight him in a wheelchair? Like, what is she gonna do? I and at least if he had given us that, maybe he killed most of the mob, but it was Lonnie and the nurse and Lindsay and Tommy came together and stopped him.
right.
And then they brought him to the hospital, and then the fight would continue. That would at least been satisfying. But you didn't do that. You just had him be a murder machine, and he murdered everyone.
And also who joined the crowd was like the regular neighbors who wasn't affected by Michael Myers in 78.
Yeah,
And I thought that that would have been great to like we're standing up for our community kind of moment because you understand why the survivors are there. But then like the townspeople, they could have had their moment to shine too, but it was just like no, it was like let me just slaughter the people from
yeah.
40 years ago.
He just slaughtered all of them, and I'm like, well, at this point, I think this town is screwed because he has massacred so many people. How would who would live in Haddonfield after this
No,
when
that's
this
why they
all goes?
that's why the residents was like we're going to take this in our own hands. Which then if you look at how what the story was supposed to be, from my understanding, you would know more because you watched this whole thing. Um, it always seemed to be a way of good versus evil
Mhm.
with the Halloween movies. But then when you get into the whole mob mentality and the fact that the guy killed himself because they kept chasing him,
Yeah,
that muddles that whole good versus evil. Where like it drives you to complete insanity of you thinking you're gonna, kill Michael this way by, chasing him down, chasing him up a flight of stairs,
yeah,
essentially. So then you're also, what you just did is you made a man kill himself. You're just as evil as well. So it gets kind of weird in terms of the messaging that I don't know what they were trying to do with this as well.
yeah. I don't know
I
what
mean, because you
the
have like the
message.
mob mentality, and then it's like, okay, we're gonna, stop what we're doing. Let's think about it. So let's do something else. And they do try because they realize that he's gonna go back to his home, and that's when you meet him with the whole, what was it, Allison who pulled the mask off, right?
Yeah.
But it just never really seemed to go anywhere.
No, and I'm befuddled how they're going to now link to him going to the hospital, or are they going to have Lori get mad and find out her daughter's dead and then go to his house? I don't know. I don't know how you get him organically now to go why does he need to go to the hospital? He went to where he wanted to go.
Hmm.
So and they made it clear earlier they had the whole explanation like, oh, it was his doctor that led him to Lori and he doesn't really care about you. It's not that he wants to kill you, he just wants to go home. So he is home, right? He doesn't know Lori's alive or dead. He doesn't care.
Right.
So why would he now trek to the hospital? He has no reason to do that. You now have to either get him there for a confrontation, which
Right.
is going to seem awkward, or you're going to have Lori, I don't know, shoot herself in the ass with more morphine and then steal a car. I don't know. What the hell? How do you follow this up? And the cops are no help. Like that poor black sheriff, the guy from the first movie,
Yeah.
he just gave up after the mob killed that dude. He just kind of sat down and he was just like, "Yeah, I'm done. I'm done. I hate this place."
I
He
don't
looked
blame him though.
he completely gave up. Like he just was sitting there. He didn't give a shit anymore. I was like, okay, you're no help. Like you're the sheriff. Like you're obviously the cool guy. You got a Walker Texas Ranger hat. You're supposed to be like the man running the investigation, and he just gave up. So I'm like,
I
is
mean,
it is Haddonfield just in complete chaos by the third movie?
maybe it's the whole town. Maybe the town is pure evil that they just happen to be
It's
in.
actually the town.
It's he's the town is feeding his evilness because nothing really makes sense. The black guy who walked away was the only one who was able to figure out. So he just went home and he's packing his bags and he's leaving.
Yeah, right. Well, after that massacre, I don't
I
blame
don't
him.
blame anyone at
I
this point.
I don't blame him. I don't blame anyone if they just said, "Yeah, I'm out of here. Fuck this place."
Which was so weird because how come none of the it's just the thinking that no one else left the town. Just in general. I found that to be hilarious.
Well, I can see because in the original movie, in the
Hmm.
'78 movie, he only killed 3 people,
Oh,
right?
well then it was simple. Okay.
And this movie, this new trilogy ignores every other Halloween movie,
Yeah.
everything else except the original '78 movie.
Oh.
So they're saying like Halloween 2 didn't happen, 4 through whatever, H2 on Resurrection, none of those happened. So you just go from the first movie. He has been locked in a sanitarium for 40 years, and he killed 3 teenagers one night. So it doesn't seem that bad. But now he has killed, I don't know, 50
Okay.
people. Well, I don't know
So
what his body count is now, and the
but
night's not over.
with that being just a direct sequel to Halloween 2 and you forget all of the other body counts, explain to me the town mob mentality because I can understand the survivors even though it was technically only 3. But now you have the whole town that's also like, we're going to kill this man because I thought it was like he's been on this killing spree for years.
Yeah,
It's
it
weird.
ignited really oddly from Tommy Doyle just running around like rallying everybody up, and then
Uh,
they all got angry, and it's like, but were all these people directly affected by him from what he just did in the first movie?
no.
I mean, most of that stuff happened at Laurie's house, so how would they even know about it? And yeah, so that's why I don't like the mob mentality stuff because it was very
Uh,
inorganic. And they were
mm,
also chanting, "Oh, evil dies tonight." I'm like, that that's not only sounds phony and inorganic, it doesn't sound like something you'd say,
mm,
especially since he wasn't only Laurie referred to him as pure evil, and that was only in her monologue at the end of the movie. Before that, he was the boogeyman. They kept calling him the boogeyman. So they didn't say the boogeyman dies tonight, which would have referred to him, or Michael Myers dies tonight. Nope. They just said evil. And it's like, well, that's a dumb catchphrase. Everybody was chanting it for no particular reason. And then it's like, it was too like, oh, everybody's just all wrapped up in the moment to realize what's happening. It's like, but would they really be? And why are so many people at the hospital if like he only killed a few people and they're not there yet? I don't understand. Like half the town was at the hospital.
yes, with no security at the hospital.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You can't even get in. It's but yeah, no, that really doesn't make much sense now that it's been explained. And if there's only one person screaming, that's not him. You know, that's
Right.
also extra weird.
Also, Karen could have stayed with him, like when she locked the doors and said, "Hey, I'm gonna close this door, lock it behind you." What she should have done is stayed with the little penguin inmate guy, locked the doors with him,
Mhm.
and then stayed with him and said, "Hey, he's not Michael Myers. Everybody calm down." To keep him from then killing himself, she could have saved him right there because I doubt the mob would have beat her ass. She could have just said, "Hey, Tommy, I'm in here. This is not Michael Myers. Look at him. Look at this little short, squat man,
Yeah.
and you tell me this is Michael Myers," and they would have been like, "Oh, okay, everybody calm down," because he was the one who fired everybody up in the first place. He could have just jumped in front and said no, but instead she locks him in the room, and he's basically in a glass jar with everybody beating on it.
Which was also extra weird because then they realized it wasn't Michael Myers until after he killed himself.
Yeah, I mean, you could see him while they're smashing the glass. It's like you he's in there are big windows you're trying to break through. You could see this man. Does he look like the guy that everybody's describing? Is he wearing a? He's not even wearing a mask, and he's very short.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
it's just weird. It just was ramped up and just felt weird. The writing of that felt weird. Also, the dialogue for a lot of people felt bad. Not just the "Evil Dies Tonight" thing. I think that's a dumb catchphrase that everybody kept chanting. You could make it a tagline for a movie, but don't make it something that people say over and over again. It was silly. Just everybody's dialogue and behavior after he shows up and starts killing is ridiculous. Like everybody just acted not rational or sane. And I understand it's like, well, it's not rational because he's killing people. Yeah, but they do stupid things. The whole point, Tommy spent half an hour of the movie telling everybody we have to stick together, and he's unpredictable, and he'll sneak up on you, and you think he's coming from the left, he's coming from the right, so you have to stick together. And he keeps telling people he's driving around town, you got to stick together, don't split up. He's gonna come from behind you, and then you all have to be watching each other's backs. That goes out the window by the end of the movie.
We're gonna split up now.
Yep, everybody splits up, and
We
it's
can
ridiculous
take them on separately.
until the very end of the movie where he finally has the mob together and they're fighting together, and that doesn't matter either. And I'm like,
Because they
holy
gave him
shit!
his mask. His mask is the power. It's the source of all
It's a
evil.
source of his power. Yeah, and they hit. I wish they had done more with that in the other movie, because
Hmm.
when I remember when the podcast guy takes the mask out when he's in the sanitarium, he turns around like he knew it was behind him, but he didn't see it. Like he reacted to it, and it's like, you could feel it, can't you? And it's like, but you need to do more with that. Is the mask supernatural or isn't it? Like obviously now it has to be.
It has to be.
But in the first movie, you could have done more with that, saying like, this mask has power or something, and they don't say it. Just come out and say it.
Jeez. I don't. Yeah, it's so weird. Like I could accept that. Oh, it's a superpower mask. Fine. But it just overall how they executed this whole thing just didn't make any sense. It was silly.
Yeah, or maybe just the fact that if he hides his face, he gets power. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't have to be this particular mask, because in the when he was a kid, he was wearing a clown mask. But it's just weird. And then his power creep is ridiculous. That's another thing that's happening in horror movies. Like he gets his ass beat and stabbed, but then when his mask kicks in, boy, he just decimates everyone. Doesn't matter. He has 80 bullet holes. He got stabbed with a pitchfork and a knife in the spine. Doesn't matter.
Like he
None of that
never
matters.
bleeds also, which is weird. Like I'm gonna shoot you, you're shot, and you never bleed. You just get up.
He shot and stabbed. And in the last movie too, I think he was shot. Laurie shot him twice. She shot him while he was walking around, blew a hole in him, and she blew his fingers off when he crashed his hand through the door. She took the shotgun and she you see it and they kept it in this movie. She blasted some of his fingers off one of his hands. And none of this affects him. Like, yeah, he doesn't bleed. Like he would be bleeding all over the place. It doesn't matter. He doesn't bleed.
He is just the morphine. That's why they went and they showed Jamie Lee Curtis stabbing herself with the morphine.
Oh, but she would still bleed. As a matter of fact, when she kicked that dude when the mob was running past her and a guy
Hmm.
grabbed her and she just like n- totally just kicked his ass. She popped her stitches because when they took her back in the room, she was bleeding. So the morphine will help you feel no pain up to a point, but she bleeds. Like she was bleeding all over the place.
Oh gosh.
Everybody bleeds but him. That I just I mean, I will definitely watch the last movie just I because I have to know how they make this flow into the final movie.
Well, they said, even though you can say a lot of things, they said that it would be the end for her chapter.
Right.
So
So
she's basically gonna die.
and I was curious whether the future is Allison is going to become so traumatized that she'll become him, like she will become the shape, or
Oh,
if she, because I'm like, I, are you going to make her be Laurie Strode and make Michael still a thing? Because he's
yeah.
also old now, right? I mean, even though he's the shape and stuff, he's like, I
He's
mean, he
not old.
doesn't act like an 80-year-old man, but
If
he's
you can not bleed when you're stabbed, I don't think he ages.
right. Yeah, okay, so Uh, so you could keep him around. It's the end of her chapter, and then Allison is now her, right? But I think would it be more interesting if Allison became him, became the shape, like it's not just him and the mask, or maybe it is the mask and the essence of the evil is in it,
Ah, so it
and not
turns
him.
her.
Yeah, and then maybe she puts it on and then kills him finally,
Oh,
something like that.
see, that would be great. Because here's the thing: I interviewed Jamie Lee Curtis and Allison, the one who plays Allison, and
Mhm.
essentially they said, without much spoilers, was that it was a passing of the torch.
Ah,
So They didn't say, "Oh, I'm gonna die," and then now it's her turn. But they was really emphasizing that, this is the last movie I'm gonna be in,
Hmm.
and you could say that this is a passing of the torch and the title of Scream Queen.
Interesting. Okay.
So, so either way, I think without any doubt, Jamie Lee Curtis is going to get got.
Hmm.
But I do like your version better of Allison getting the mask, you being curious, putting on the mask, and now she is the embodiment of the shape.
Yeah.
That
And
makes it
then
more interesting.
and that's how he dies. Like that's how he finally dies. Like she kills him because she's now the shape, and then she just kills him.
That works wonderfully. And then maybe we can get like, then we know the actual origin story of Halloween ish, maybe? They never really explained him and the mask and the whole situation, right? He was just a
Now,
killer.
in the other movies, they did, but it was silly. It was I think between 4, 5, and 6, they had brought in this idea of a Celtic cult that worshipped old Celtic gods,
Oh.
and that there was Haddonfield was founded by members of this cult, and that
Ah,
his family actually had a curse on it, and and he was born on Halloween night, whatever, whenever he's born in the 50s, and because of that, he was born without a soul, and it was just filled with evil, and that's why he became the way he is.
so I was top right. The town is basically evil.
Yes, but they ignore all that in this trilogy unless they're going to bring back that whole storyline because they
Uh,
dropped it. They totally dropped it. All that stuff they dropped. The whole Celtic origin and that his family was actually cursed.
mm-hmm.
But I for some reason it was just him that the curse followed through him or something.
Oh my gosh. That sounds like a hot mess. Also, I wish William Shatner was in the movie because that would have been hilarious.
Yeah, it's like, hey, that looks like my face.
If he was the one who was being chased in the hospital,
Oh my god. He was the little sanitarium man.
that would have been hilarious. Look at his face.
Oh man. That would have been pretty funny. I bet he would have gotten a kick out of that. He would have done that.
Mhm. That'd have been so much better. I would have liked that one. But yeah, overall, this was terrible. This sucked. It
Yes,
was bad.
I can only hope that they redeem themselves in the last movie because this kind of fell. Like it had good parts, but it failed, and it definitely wasn't worse than the 2018 movie.
I loved the 2018 movie. I had such good
Yeah.
times watching that. But yeah, hopefully they inject some form of personality or go back to that one because it felt like it was a completely separate script, like a whole nother team just took it on.
Yeah, it's weird because I was looking at the credits and it's like I don't see different people in the names. The director and he
Hmm.
co-wrote on it, but I think he also co-wrote on the other
Yeah, it was.
movie.
And the thing is, remember Danny McBride also did it. So I'm like,
Yes, and he's still in the
and
credits.
he's a co-writer. I just thought that he would have
Yeah.
had something in there. That's why I like the first one or the previous one. But yeah, no.
I had a theory because I know this is Bloomhouse and Jason Bloom had some he's an executive producer, but he does have input into these movies. And he's also the reason why they did the simultaneous release on Peacock and theaters. It was
Well,
him.
Peacock needs something
Well,
still there.
it needs something, but I think at this point now you don't need to do simultaneous release in the theaters because people have gone back to movie theaters. Although I would have been mad if I
I
went to
would
the
have
theater
been
and saw this.
angry if I saw this in the theater. I think that it's good. I support simultaneous releases because
I wish
this
they
was
would
boo.
keep it going, but I think Warner Brothers next year they're not going to do that
No,
anymore.
it's
What they used
45
to,
days.
yeah, 45 days. So they're back to that, and that sucks.
I'm
But
okay with 45 days. What is that, a month and a half? I'm good.
eh, I like
Eh,
the simultaneous. I
well,
want.
yeah. Well, I don't think we will ever get that again. Maybe unless it's like a kids movie.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. I guess if they don't have faith in it, they'll do
Oh,
that.
no, I mean, it really depends because the Aretha Franklin Respect movie that was with Jennifer Hudson, that was 15 days. And I looked
Oh,
up and I was like, what? And then for Fast and Furious, that was 33 days, which
oh, really?
shocked
Okay.
me because I'm like, it's going to be a year. It was 33 days.
Interesting. I thought that movie made money.
It made a whole bunch of money,
Hmm.
family. So it
Hmm.
made that family money. And
Hmm.
it was the one that was like, oh, look, the pandemic's over. I was like, no, but okay. But yeah, it made a lot of money in 33 days. I looked up, I'm like, why is it on my TV?
Anyway, Bloomhouse needs to redeem himself with that last movie, but
Mhm.
I don't know if it will because they filmed them at the same time.
No, and I think everything was written all together at once, so I don't
Yeah,
think so.
yeah.
Unfortunate.
They should have never changed that ending. Whatever ending you explained to me, that would have been way better. Would
Yeah,
have been way better than
that
what
would,
we got.
that would have indeed. I agree, but yeah. So that's kind of our discussion and our take on Halloween. Dos, um, essentially, yeah, Halloween Kills. And any other final thoughts that you have?
Oh man, I don't fill in any more stuff from the original '78 movie. Don't do any more filler because you are on the third movie now. I hope to God there's not more flashbacks or whatever because it's like the time for filling that stuff in is past. Like just go forward. Whatever like this movie has to have like action. Like I don't know if you're gonna just double the body count of this movie because this movie like quadrupled the body count of the last movie. So it's like, I mean, if you just keep ramping it up to whatever climactic fight is gonna happen, just just move forward. Don't deep fake anyone. Don't I don't know that because I
Deepfake.
really feel that they're gonna. Yeah, you said like Donald Pleasance. I mean, he's dead. Like they can't even use
Yeah.
him. But I was like kind of wondering if they were gonna de-age Jamie Lee Curtis, and I don't know because I feel like they're gonna do that. They're gonna do something where he's looking at her and he sees her as she was in 1978. They're gonna de-age her and have her fight him like that or
Oh
something.
gosh.
I don't know. I feel like something they want to do something cheesy like that because they did it with Donald Pleasance, like put him in the movie, and I'm like, oh, are they gonna deep fake her? Or I mean, not deep fake her, de-age her because she's in the movie. They just have to de-age her. She's gonna pop out like Luke Skywalker, and the Mandalorian.
Where's my baby Yoda? But Jamie Lee Curtis did do an interview, and she did say this. She said that for the third film, Halloween Ends,
Hmm.
so there's one more film to make, and I know what it's about, and it's going to blow people's minds open. It's going to make people very angry, and it's going to be shocking because it asks a lot of questions. So that's all I can tell you. What questions is it going to ask?
It's gonna
Maybe
ask
it's an
questions.
origin. Could be the origin story.
I wonder if they're gonna dig into why he is the way that he is more. Is there gonna be like a crack in? They're going to go under the hospital and find like Stonehenge, and they're gonna find all that Celtic shit
It's the
in all the
town.
movies. And the
Maybe.
town is evil. And his house happens to be sitting on a ley line or some shit. I don't know.
It's a burial ground.
I don't know if that would make people angry. I know it will make a lot of people like, really,
Maybe he
really.
doesn't die at all, and that would make people angry. Halloween ends and he's still alive, popping,
Yeah, yeah.
killing
If they
people unaffected.
It's gonna make people angry. I'm thinking now that you said that what it is like him not die. Yeah, that because people would be unsatisfied, right? You just call
Yeah,
him like he wins basically. Oh, he
bas-
wins after these three movies. Yeah, nobody did it. Nobody killed him.
he kills her. He kills Laurie, and then he just goes on about his day, and that's it.
Oh man,
Oh, that's just made me so sad.
that's all you get.
That's all you get. But yeah. So any plugs you have, Mister Seeley?
Yeah, you can check me out on Throwdown. We got one every Thursday and Sunday, so we'll do one this tonight. Let's throw down your questions, and then regular Throwdown is Thursdays, at 10:30 Eastern. So come check us out. Talk about video games.
Wonderful. And if you are wanting more Halloween stuff on the YouTube of the Koalition, we have the entire cast interview with the Halloween, what is this, kills. All of Halloween kills. We have all of the interviews, including one with Jason Bloomhouse. That was fun. And oh, and by the way, Jamie Lee Curtis did not like that they put her in a hospital for this movie. She expressed her frustration with that because
Oh,
she loved being interactive in the first movie.
yeah.
And because she's like a warrior, and then they put her in the hospital and in the hospital gown, and she said she found it absolutely frustrating.
Well, I mean, I think people would agree with that. It was
Uh-huh.
frustrating that like the main character was in 3 scenes and just in a hospital.
Yep, in a hospital, reminiscing about the past
Yeah.
with a guy who may be your baby daddy. So we have that, and then also we did a whole bunch of DC fandom stuff. I'm the only one who apparently watched DC fandom. That's okay, and we have all of that. So once again, thank you for listening to us. I have been Dana, your host, joined by Mr. Chris Seeley. I
Thank
have
you so much.
no problem. Have a great day, afternoon, evening, whatever time zone you're watching this in, and enjoy Halloween kills. Yay!